check, 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 check.
Check. Oh, beautiful. Why talk when a robot can talk for you? So, all right. So, a couple of things. I want you to know, want you to let all of your friends know that no one has ever not gone to summer camp because of money. As long as I've been a youth pastor here at Grace, just like 6 summers, no one has ever not gone because of money. So every year we do a fundraiser to raise money to help keep the cost of camp relatively low. It's still kind of expensive, but without it, it'd be super crazy expensive. As well as provide financial aid to people who was. You took it. Congratulations, ladies. You did. Oh. I really appreciate how the girls tried to have everything like perfectly balanced. It would have been beautiful. Honestly, I think it was the cow. It was the brown cow, the how now brown cow, that really kind of just threw the weight of everything off. So, and the guys, it was, that, I think that orange or yellow block there, that was your, a solid foundation. So, all right. That was Tower of Stuff. So good job, all you manly men. You'll feast on candy during small group. So, and ladies, you did good as well. So, but no candy for you. So, oh, all right. So if you have been around the Annex for any amount of time, yeah, you know that I'm the talking guy, right? I'm the dude who gets on stage. I talk and I talk and I talk, and then we're done. So as the youth pastor here, I love giving messages and talking about all sorts of things that we talk about throughout the year. But tonight, we're doing something a little bit different. Instead of a regular message, we're going to try something new. We're going to actually have a little interview with a good friend of mine, and then send you a small group a little early, do something different in small group. So to kick things off, we have a little video to introduce the series we're currently in called Do Something. So check this out. I'll be right back. All right, so last week we started a series called Do Something that's on the issue of justice. I am positive that there has been something in the past year that you have seen on social media, that you've seen on YouTube, or that you've even seen with your very own eyes or ears, either locally here in Eugene, in your group of friends, or happening in America or the world. That made you think, man, that is not right. Someone should do something about that. And maybe you've even had the question, what can I do? What should I do when I see about or hear about injustice, right? When we hear about hate against a people group, when we hear even about individuals who are mean or hateful towards someone else, even just in a group text among friends behind someone's back. So our world is filled with injustice. But what does that actually mean? What does it look like? And what can we actually do about it? Especially as a community of people who follow Jesus. What does that mean to follow Jesus and do something about this? So tonight I asked a good friend of mine, Dr. Agam, to come and be with us. So you can make your way up to the stage. Bethany, do we have that second microphone? Awesome. Come on up. Perfect. All right. Ooh. Thank you. All right. There you go, my friend. So Dr. Agam is the Bible theology professor at the newest and coolest named university in Eugene, Bushnell University. And Dr. Agam, thank you for being here with us. Thank you. Yeah, I love your accent. Is that Cresswell or Pleasant Hill accent? No, it's not. Oh, so close. So close. So, all right. All right. So, Dr. Agam, you teach college students, Bible and theology here in Eugene. You've also done that at colleges in California. I'd like to start tonight just by hearing a little bit about you, about what made you want to teach about the Bible, and what made you kind of want to become a pastor, and kind of what's your life kind of looked like.
Okay, like I said, I grew up in Nigeria. I'm going to teach you how to locate Nigeria. Okay? The next time you see a map of Africa, think about it. It's shaped like a gun pointing downwards. Nigeria is a symbol. You see a map of Africa, kind of like North America, but the barrel of the gun is extended more. Like a gun pointing downwards, Nigeria would be at the symbol more. So I grew up in Nigeria. I became a follower of Jesus as a young person. Went to college, studied engineering, and just about the time I was graduating from college, I sensed God was calling me to be a pastor. So I did that. I was a pastor for a number of years. In that period, we moved to the U.S. from Nigeria. And now, when we moved to Eugene, I'm no longer serving as a pastor, but I'm now teaching. I'm helping train people who will serve as pastors someday. That's kind of 31-minute version of my journey here.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. And all of you students who will one day be in college, Bushnell University, bushnell.edu. Scopeaks. Dr. Agam, we have the privilege of having you speak here at Grace Community Fellowship, and a couple times you've come and talked to the church staff, including me. So in this series, the Annex is going through, it's called Do Something, where we are talking about justice. And one thing that we want to look at tonight is, what does the Bible say about justice? And almost what would Jesus say about injustice? Because there are lots of different messages. People say, this is what justice means, or what it looks like, or here's how we do that. And you've shared before about kind of the gospel message of Jesus, and how that and how justice fits into that. So would you share with us just a little bit about, when it comes to this idea of justice as followers of Jesus, how should we understand and look at that idea?
Well, let me start this way. Many times in the Bible, God is identified as a God of justice. So let's just go straight to the top of the totem pole. God is called a God of justice, and theologians tell us that is one of God's divine attributes, things that characterize who he is and how he is, right? God is a God of justice. If I can ask you a question, if you're familiar, for those familiar with the Old Testament story, you know that Israel, the nation of Israel, they were God's people. At the time, God's people, the community of God's people, had this national ethnic nature, right? And at some point, after they had sinned against God, they were carried into captivity. It was almost like they lost their protection, and God allowed their enemies to not just overcome them, but carry them into captivity. Here's my question. What was the reason? What was the sin? Anybody? Why was Israel carried into captivity? Yes? Okay? They stopped following God. In what way? Okay? They started worshiping other gods. Others, any other answers here? Well, you're right. Or at least partly right. Yes? Okay? They were not treating each other the way that God wanted them to. You are also right. Yes? Okay. They didn't listen when God sent people to turn them back to Him. Those people were called prophets. The prophets were like God's spokesmen, and they were like these preachers who rebuked the people. Sometimes they confronted kings. And when you read the prophets in the Old Testament, the thread, there were three things they called God's people out for. One was their personal sin. They rebuked them about wrong things they were doing. Secondly, they rebuked them about idolatry. You mentioned that they were worshiping other gods. But then they also rebuked them about injustice. Injustice. In fact, one of those prophets, in a very, very clear verse, I'm going to quote it. He says, here's what he says. He has told you, O man, and think man in the sense of humanity, what is good and what the Lord requires of you. What was it? To do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with God. You see what I'm saying? Now, somebody might be like, well, God just wants us to live pure lives so that we don't sin, and we don't realize that God is concerned with justice. Jesus, let's move to the New Testament. Jesus was also concerned about justice. I'll give you one example. They brought a woman to Jesus. Obviously, they were trying to trap Jesus. They said, hey, we caught this woman in the act of adultery. That's a married person having sex with somebody who's not their wife or husband. And they said, we caught her in the act. The law prescribes that we stone the person. You know what Jesus said to them? First of all, he bent down, writing on the ground, and then he said, here's what you'll do. The person who is without sin, cast the first stone. Obviously, nobody did, and they all slunk away one by one. Now, before the end of that encounter, Jesus does say to that woman, woman, where are your accusers? He said, well, they're not here, they're gone. But if they don't condemn you, I won't condemn you, but go home and live your life of sin. Jesus does address the sin aspect that those people were concerned about. But the first thing he does with the mob is to address their injustice. How do you catch someone in the act of adultery, but there's only one person you brought? You see what I'm saying? Jesus was concerned about justice. God is concerned about justice.
Thank you for sharing that. You know, when it comes to the idea of justice, a lot of times it can feel like maybe it's something it's an idea or something that is out there. We've all seen about or heard about injustice, but oftentimes maybe we think about it's something that happens in other places, in other times, or maybe it's just not something that maybe we, for sitting here today, have you really seen it and experienced it. So I was wondering, has there been times in your life where maybe you've experienced this issue?
Injustice. Yeah. Yes. I have experienced injustice, but there are many people who have experienced it in worse ways. So whenever I have to talk about this, I'm wary about speaking of myself because really, my life is good. And I'm thankful for that. But there is injustice. Now, I'm going to just go ahead and talk about something that you have probably heard in the news, and it's in your feed, in your social media. There's all this talk today about racism and racial justice and injustice. And sometimes some people are like, well, yeah, we know there was slavery in America and segregation and all that stuff, but that was a long time ago. That was in the lifetime of my grandparents, my great-grandparents. What has that got to do with anything today? How does it affect anybody today? Well, I'll tell you. I was having a conversation with somebody who is perhaps the age of your grandparents or your great-grandparents. And that conversation was about the residual effect, the residue of racial injustice in America. And the person said to me, yeah, I remember when I was young, when I was a teenager, working with a family member who was in real estate, and they said, well, look at that neighborhood. Whenever black people, African Americans move into that place, they just ruin the neighborhood and the property values go way down. And he said it out of compassion because he was recognizing that that statement was, you know, it reflected some broad categorization of an entire group of people. But he was talking about something that happened 60 years ago. So I said to him, how about I tell you something that happened 2 years ago? We moved to Eugene. We moved into the house. The first week we moved in the house, the only black family in the neighborhood. The kids were playing upstairs, and someone called the cops. My son David was 5 years old. And maybe he was playing with his sister who was saying, hey, David, get off, David, go, or something. And we were downstairs, the doorbell rings, and two cops are standing there. We didn't even have living room furniture. They're like, everything okay here? And I'm wondering, in fact, when the bell rang, I wondered, well, who could it be? We just moved in here, nobody knows my address. I say, yes, officers, can I help you? So we got some complaint here. Anybody else in the house? I say, yeah, the kids are upstairs. Can we check? Sure, go ahead. And they went in, and the 5-year-old boy walks up to the policeman. Oh, my sister wouldn't let me play with her toy, or something like that. But here's what I want to point out. Someone in the neighborhood saw a black family moving and overheard something that would be an ordinary conversation in a different context, and they imposed their own meaning that was pejorative, and they called the police. Now, the policeman came downstairs. Oh, you could cut the tension in the room. It was super awkward. I think they felt very silly. But in fairness to them, they were doing their job, and they tried to make small talk. Oh, so did you just move here? Yeah, we're from California. Oh yeah, it's sunny there. We did the weather thing, and then they left. And I was wondering, what just happened? Where did I just move into? But here's the thing. I tell you that story just to show you that, and I told the person I was having that conversation with, and they were taken aback. The point was, it's not something that happened 60 years ago. It's stuff that's happening right now. And there are many ways that people can feel the brunt of that type of injustice. I just shared one small example because it happened in Eugene here. I don't know if that's helpful, but I share that just to point out that it's easy, but very wrong and unhelpful to think or assume that, oh yeah, none of that is happening today. Oh yeah, we know it all happened then. There is injustice around. There's some of it happening around you, right where you are. And you might be in a position to do something about it.
Thank you so much for sharing that story with us. You know, I think what's helpful, at least for me, when I hear your story, is it really just shows me how different perspective, because in a lot of ways we're the same. We both live in Eugene. We both go to jobs every day. We're both dads. We shop at grocery stores, probably the same ones. And it's easy to think like, well, how different could our lives be? We're living in the same town, doing some of the same things. So however I experience my life, and again, I only know my life, it's easy to think like, well, that must be what everyone's life is like, at least in my city, you know, at least in people who are close to my age, you know, living where I am. But that has never happened to me. And that helps me see how people can experience life differently, even with so many similarities in so many ways. And I think injustice is the same way, where people who have, you know, similar in many, many ways can still experience injustice, whether that is racism or sexism or really prejudice of any kind, because of that single factor in their lives. And what's helpful, at least for me, is just hearing that story and being aware that kind of thing is a reality where I live. And I really appreciate just hearing you say that. And I'm sure a question that comes up in my mind, and I'm sure many people in this room, they think, wow, I wish that that would change. I wish that someone would do something about that, or I even wish that I could do something about the injustices in the world. So we have incredible middle and high school students in this room who have incredible hearts for Jesus and their friends. So what would you say are some things that middle school and high school students can do about injustice?
Middle and high schoolers. For middle schoolers and high schoolers who follow Jesus, I'll say the first thing to do is to have a fuller understanding of what's involved with following Jesus. And here's what I mean by that. When Jesus was preaching, he frequently talked about his kingdom. He said he will send people to go proclaim that the kingdom of God was coming. Now, he himself was the inauguration of that kingdom. Okay? The kingdom is where God rules, where God reigns. Now, oftentimes, people who follow Jesus, they have what I think is a sub-biblical understanding of what that kingdom means. We think, hey, okay, I'm saved, God saves me, oh, someday I'll go to heaven, and okay, I'll just keep my nose clean, and then I'm good. But there's so much more to that. When we follow Jesus, we're transformed and we reflect more of God's character. That involves things like love, compassion, holiness, but also justice. So, number one, if you're a follower of Jesus, understand that God cares about things like this. And you're like, well, preacher, yeah, okay, I get that. What exactly can I do? Here's the most powerful thing you can do. Care. Care. The most powerful thing you can do, and what I think is the starting point, is to care. Your life may be good like mine is. And just because your life is good, you might just be like, okay, well, I'm not really affected. So it doesn't mean you're a bad person or you're some callous person. No. It just means it's not on your radar screen. So you can start by caring. And I can tell you what happens when you care. When you care, you will begin to see things that you did not see before. When you care about justice, you care about others. You want people to understand what life feels like when King Jesus is ruling. That's his kingdom, right? Now, where is that kingdom located? Wherever you find people who belong to the kingdom. So, if I show up somewhere, God's kingdom has interfaced with that particular place. When you care, you're more likely to begin to see things. You can speak out. When you care, you might see a kid who is being bullied or picked on. And you might not have noticed it. Or before you might have just, well, okay, that's just fun, you know. You gotta grow thick skin and don't be so sensitive. When you care, you might recognize the injustice and you can speak up. Speak up for people. That's easy. Low stakes. But I want to end it. I'm a Bible teacher, so I usually like to bring up something from the Bible. You probably heard the story of the Good Samaritan. It's one of Jesus' parables. This man was attacked by robbers and took his stuff, left him nearly dead. Some God people, religious people passed by but did nothing. The person who stopped to help him was someone he probably will not have a conversation, a handshake with. Now, this person stopped to help him, but he didn't just help him. He picked him up, put him on his donkey or whatever it was he was riding, and took him to your equivalent of our ER today. And he said to them, hey, please, can you nurse him till he's well? Here is some money. If it's not enough, put it on my tab. When I come back again, I'll make it up. Now, he cared, and because he cared, he stopped. After stopping, he did something about it. But he didn't just do something about it. He also did something that cost him. So, it starts with caring. You can care. You can speak up. But I'm going to tell you, sometimes it can be costly too. You might speak up for injustice and people come after you. You see what I'm saying? People who didn't notice you before might regard you as enemies or might try to hurt you and all that. That's the reality of it. I have children. I have children who are your age, and I don't want anybody to do anything to them. And anybody who does, oh, okay, let's not go down that road. But the truth of the matter is that Caring and doing something can be costly. But that's part of what it means to follow Jesus. That's the kind of stuff that Jesus did. And you remember what happened to him? They killed him. Care. Speak up when you see injustice, even when you recognize that it could be costly to you. You know, you might say it, but if I do something, they'll hate me too. Now, that's a good conversation to have with yourself. Because when you're thinking about that, it means there might actually be something at stake.
Dr. Occam, thank you so much for sharing with us. Can we thank Doctor for being here tonight? Yeah. So, our interview is done, but we're not done talking about injustice. So what we're going to do now is we're going to transition to a small group time. And you're going to be in your normal small groups, normal small group leader. But we have a little something different for you as you go to small group. Because we have a Bible professor tonight, we want to make sure that you guys really opened your Bibles. So we have selected several different passages in the Bible that just talk about justice or injustice. And you're going to read through those as a small group and then head into your questions. So, Agam, would you pray with me just for students for a time? I'll pray, and then you can pray about. All right. God, thank you so much for this day and this opportunity that we have to come together in person, just be here together. God, thank you for being a God of justice and a God who cares and loves us. And even though there is so much evil and wrong in the world, God, that you are still doing something about it. God, I pray that we would have your heart and that we would see the world as you see it. God, may it start with us. May your love shine through us, shine through our words, shine through the things that we say in public and in private, the things that we message, the way that we talk about and see others. May we see the world as you see it. God, may we be that good Samaritan who cares and who stops and who does something.
God, I thank you. I thank you for this young man, women. I look at them and I'm hopeful because I recognize that your kingdom shows up when your people are around. Lord, I pray that by your Spirit you will cause their hearts to catch your fire. Lord, as they care, would you open their eyes? Would you give them the courage and the boldness to respond to you, even when it's costly? And Lord, would you use those encounters to transform them, to make them more like you? Would you do it for your glory? I pray in Jesus' name.
Amen. All right, have a great time in small groups. The rooms are up on the screen, so just find where you need to go and then head out up the stairs and to your room and have an awesome time together in small groups.